Father Kasmir Nema, SVD. Welcome to this series conversations of treasures of the past and experiences in the present. It is a privilege to have with us today Father Christian Tauchner, SVD. Father Christian, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let me start with this question, Father. As the SVD celebrates 150 years of mission, how do you personally reflect on the journey of divine word missionaries in relation to communication and culture?
Well, these are two terms, in my view, that are extremely closely related to the entire 150 years. Actually, we started out with communication before we became a congregation, as Arnold Janssen was very much into the media of his time. And he made very good use of the possibilities he had at that time. Of course, in the meantime, the entire business and practice of communication has changed a lot. Communication still is extremely important. And as far as I'm concerned, the connection between communication and mission is a very interesting meeting point.
What is interesting meeting point, the connection between mission, culture, and communication?
Because you could not evangelize, you could not have mission if you're not communicating. And in history, we had mission by force at times. One of the properties of the SVD, we have had a great interest in communicating the word. And that immediately led us into cultures and languages. So that's the anthropos tradition of the SVD. We are looking to people who are trying to understand the culture and who have their cultures, who have their languages, and who are interested or should become interested in getting to know something about Jesus Christ and the gospel. And that's the meeting point between communication and cultures and mission.
You've been involved in many works throughout your missionary work as communication expert. Can you share more on the communication ministry you have been involved in our society?
Well, as a student, we started out at St. Gabriel's in Austria with the house publication, which came out 5-6 times a year. So these were the early beginnings. Then later on, I went to Ecuador and had to do there with media education, but then very soon also moved into organizations and worked on radio. Then I had a chance to study mass communication research, which is more into sociology. How does a society function on the basis of their media? And I think that has helped me a lot because, again, that returns you to the point of cultures. And in a very deep sense, which is what we are called to as SVD missionaries, we are looking at language. In the beginning, there was the word. Yep. So that's a key word for the SVD, and it has to do with language. So if I was talking to you in, let's say, Quechua, which is a language I don't know, but you wouldn't understand it either. So even if I said the perfect truth in Quechua, it would not serve anything. So in order to talk, we have to come to terms at the moment in English, and we could try to use a couple of other languages, but the point is, whatever I'm going to say, even if it's nonsense, but more so if it is important and truth, I depend totally on what you understand and on your way of understanding. And I think that's the basic idea of communication in the SVD.
Speaking of that basic idea of communication in SVD, and also, of course, your personal understanding and personal involvement in the communication ministry, how do you see the role of media communication evangelization in today's society?
we are in the middle of a time and probably moving out where some forms of communication and media have been very important for evangelization. Now there is a big splintering up of channels of content and of also producing nonsense. Be that Catholic fundamentalists, be that whatever it be on esoteric issues and so on. So we are at a moment in history where a lot of media do not help you anymore for any meaningful communication. I find it quite interesting. In Germany, where I'm living now, both the government and the state, with the president of the nation, are insisting up and again and say, listen, let us sit together and talk. Because we need talking to each other. We don't have to agree, but in the state of media we have at this moment, there is not even a possibility of disagreeing, because you have a second and a half and off you go. And so it's a complicated time, I think. And evangelization, going through this kind of short-lived media, is having a very difficult time, I think, because we would need more time and more personal encounter to be able to communicate the good news.
Listening to what you just explained, to me then appears or emerges another question: how can we, as a missionaries, try to balance between the use of modern media tools or communication and human-centered approach? How to balance that?
At this moment, I think the balance has to go to encountering and meeting people. The entire rest of the development is pushing towards media and so-called social media, which are neither social nor a lot of other things. So it's this short time impacts you are getting, and you are losing the possibility of complex thinking, of thinking through things, of taking in sort of an elaborate thinking, and we'll have to restore a balance. I think we have to invest much more in personal contact. That brings me back to language. In our intercultural discourse, we are bypassing and neglecting the local language. Let's say we have to talk in English. We are not talking in Italian here, and we are not using an Italian in the Roman accent. And so both of us with English, we are happy. We could switch into, who knows, maybe
German?
Well, German is my language, so I didn't want to draw on that, but we could do it in Spanish,
Right.
which again is an intermediate language. But for the engagement in evangelization, I think we must take very seriously the local language.
One of the bigger picture when we talk about the evangelization in the current situation of our societies, the term post-truth era. How do we, particularly missionaries or communicators, trying to respond the misinformation and particular misinformation in this post-truth era? How to encounter that?
One first idea is philosophical.
Okay.
What is truth? I personally don't believe that truth in the singular is possible anymore. It depends a lot on what I am saying and you think I'm telling you the truth. Objective truths out there are basically not interesting anymore. So a lot of things has to do with personal communication and the statement I give towards you and the relationship I build towards you. A second thing for me is that this kind of truth has to be organized in a way that you can take it in. So that has to do with producing from my side messages in codes that are meaningful to you, and you can deconstruct and take out what is my intention. Because if I just post on Facebook my version of truth, it is on the same level and probably less interesting than all the fake news we get. And at this stage of social development, as far as I can see, you can't expect truth anywhere to be published anymore. Because the truth about public health is a complex topic. The truth about child education is a complex topic. And if you have 3 lines to say it and 1.5 seconds to show a picture, you'll never get to anything we used to know as truth. Because truth, in the old sense of being a uniform thing, was extremely complex in a world that was much more simple than is ours now. Now, if you have a complex world with loads of approaches to a truth, you can't think that now that I am Elon Musk and I'm the owner of X, I will say the truth. And this gentleman has certainly no interest in anything to do with truth. So even if you have the power to impose something, most likely you are not related to anything in content with truth. In that sense, I'm rather pessimistic, I must say. But it is an invitation to dialogue and to communication.
Right.
And then to build together something approaching truth based on our relationship.
Do you think that's still possible to have dialogue and communication in this post-truth era, in which people mostly, influenced so much by misinformation, disinformation?
Yes, of course. And I think that's actually a very important way out of returning to what do you think about that situation? Because if we are just quoting and repeating what is coming in through so many channels, it just adds to the wave of useless bits and pieces of somebody's inventions. But talking to you, talking about your motivation, what is it that is meaningful to you? And then relating back, could it be that this happens or that happens? Well, we might come to something that for the two of us is meaningful truth, yes.
Now, as a communicators, so Christian communicators or SVDs communicators, how do we respond to this bombardier in disinformation and load of fake news? What is simple message you can suggest?
There is a study in Germany, which I am quite interested in looking at, that the money is going into social media and into the very big corporations. And this is going to dry out the editorial work of journalists. So all the big news organizations like Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung or Süddeutsche Zeitung or the major German television networks, they in this study they say in the year 2026 it is going to tip, and in 29 the study poses they won't have money to do serious journalism. So everybody will be free to come out with their truth, with their information, but you don't have anymore a responsible person who can have the money and the time to check up, is it true that electric cars are better?
Okay.
You don't have anymore a possibility to check on facts. And then you're in deep trouble. So in that sense, I think we must somehow stand by the traditional journalistic ways of dedicating time and effort, and it's time and effort, in order to balance and to get rid of the journalist's personal or the communicator's personal ideas, but rather to focus on complex situations and to check up and to listen also to the other voice.
As we celebrate 150 years of the society, what are some key challenges and hopes you see for the future of the SVD mission in the field of communication?
Well, for me, one of the first things would be returning to Constitution 115. And that's one of the high-ranking constitutions. And there it says we are committed to using all means of communication. That means sitting in Italy, if you don't talk with your hands, you are not communicating in Italy.
Okay.
And so on. So I think we should have a lot of effort in this kind of communication on a very small scale. Of course, it has to be contextual. So being a good communicator in Latin America does not mean that you are communicating well in Germany or in Britain. So there are very local ways of communicating. And I think, and that's returning to our interest in culture and in other people's manners of expressing themselves. It is returning to the everyday life of those people where we are living with. Basically, within our Catholic Church, we have an enormous problem that we think we could be universal players. And that is true in the sense that we are universal communicators and players the moment we are talking to local people. And more than talking, that we are listening.
Right.
And trying to understand what is their everyday life and what is, if I am shifting now into faith, what is God doing with them for a long time, and where is grace there, and where is healing requested. And that's the basic topics of communication. And you do it in the local language. You are not doing it in, as it were, in Latin or in English or in whatever kind of universal discourse you have.
What is your thought to share to our lay partners, and particularly young Catholic communicators, about our mission in the field of communication?
We are somehow relying a lot on and trying to understand what is actually God doing in this history. That has been throughout history in the same manner. It's a focus in missiology and in theology we are proposing for the last 20 years to take that seriously. So it is most important for Catholic communicators and committed disciples to take a look beyond our own context and atmosphere and limits to what is God doing for a long time. And there is a major process going on. And, well, God certainly does not depend on me. So God is doing a lot of things with a lot of people and a lot of situations everywhere in the world. Knowing that, God utterly depends on me. And it is me who is invited to share and to join in and to join forces with God. And that's way beyond the church, way beyond Catholic faith. It's collaborating where God leads us to, and that's part of the community to find out. And be that now SVDs or be that lay people, the point is of not resisting God in setting up our own plans, but in joining in with the dynamics of God. And then, well, basically you can't lose.
Father Christian, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
I'm Father Kasmir Nema. Thank you very much for joining us and invite you to join us in other conversations